Something happened on May 4th, 2026 that most Chrome users still do not know about. A privacy researcher named Alexander Haniff, a Swedish computer scientist and lawyer who has spent his career studying how technology companies handle user data, opened his file, system logs, and found something sitting inside Google Chrome's profile folder that he had never authorized to be there. A 4 GB file called weights, bin, stored inside a directory named opt-guide on device model, quietly downloaded by Chrome onto his computer without asking, without a notification, without a consent prompt, without a single checkbox anywhere in Chrome's settings saying anything about downloading a 4 GB artificial intelligence model onto your device. He deleted the file. Chrome downloaded it again. He deleted it a second time. Chrome downloaded it again. The file contained the parameter weights for Gemini Nano, Google's on-device large language model. Hanf published his findings on May 4th, 2026. By May 6th, The Verge had confirmed it. By May 8th, TechRadar, Malwarebytes, Snopes, and dozens of other publications had verified the same behavior on Windows 11, Mac OS, and Ubuntu systems. Snopes had 6 of its own staff members check their Chrome installations, 4 on Mac OS, 2 on Windows. Every single one of them had the file. On devices they had never set up any AI features on. On machines where they had never once used Chrome's writing assistant or AI tools, the model was just there, silently occupying 4 GB of their storage, powers features they did not know existed, enabled by default in recent Chrome versions, reinstalling itself every time someone tried to remove it. To understand why this story matters beyond the inconvenience of a surprise 4 GB download, you need to understand what month we are living in and what the last 12 months of Chrome's history look like when you lay them out in sequence. Because the Gemini Nano situation in May 2026 is not an isolated incident. It is the final item in a timeline of broken privacy promises that started in 2019, accelerated through 2025, and arrived at this moment in a way that should change how 3 billion people think about the browser they open every single morning. This is the complete story of what Google did, when it did it, and what you're going to do about it today. Let us go back to 2019. That year, Google made one of the most significant privacy promises in the history of the internet. The company announced the Privacy Sandbox initiative, a project whose stated goal was to phase out third-party tracking cookies from Chrome entirely by 2022. Third-party cookies are the mechanism that allows advertising companies to follow you from website to website across the internet, building a detailed profile of your browsing behavior without your direct knowledge or consent. For years, privacy advocates had described third-party cookies as one of the most invasive surveillance technologies in everyday computing. And in 2019, Google, the company that runs the most dominant advertising network on Earth, publicly committed to ending them in Chrome. This was presented as a major step toward a more private internet. Over the next 6 years, Google postponed that promise 5 times. 2022 became 2023. 2023 became 2024. 2024 became 2025. Each extension came with new explanations, new technical roadmaps, new assurances that the work was progressing and the deadline would hold this time. The ad tech industry, which had been frantically preparing for a world without third-party cookies, kept rebuilding their systems in response to each new Google announcement. Then, in July 2024, Google blinked. The company announced it would not phase out third-party cookies after all. Instead, it said Chrome would introduce a user prompt, a pop-up asking people to choose their cookie preferences. Privacy advocates noted that this was a significant retreat from the original promise, but accepted it as at least a partial protection. Then, in April of 2025, Google blinked again. The user prompt was canceled. No new prompt, no new system. Just the existing privacy settings buried in Chrome's menus, unchanged from before. Third-party cookies would continue exactly as they always had. The Privacy Sandbox project, 6 years of development, 5 deadline extensions, and the industry's $2. $3 billion investment in preparing for cookie-free advertising was effectively over. On October 17, 2025, Google made it official. The company retired 10 Privacy Sandbox APIs in a single announcement. Topics API, gone. Protected audience, gone. Attribution reporting, gone. The entire project was shut down. Google's spokesperson told Adweek the company was simply moving away from the Privacy Sandbox branding. 6 years, 5 extensions, 1 broken promise. Third-party tracking cookies in Chrome, the technology that Google promised in 2019 to eliminate, are still running in Chrome today as you watch this video. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, which had been tracking the Privacy Sandbox saga from the beginning, was direct in its assessment. The whole project had been, in their framing, a delay tactic. While the industry waited for Google's replacement system, the existing tracking infrastructure continued operating. And when the replacement was finally canceled, nothing had changed except that 6 years had passed. The surveillance advertising ecosystem that Google promised to reform is exactly where it was in 2019. The only difference is that the promise was made and broken in full public view. Now let us talk about what Google did in the same period to Chrome's extension framework, because this is the piece of the story that affects you most directly if you have been using Chrome with an ad blocker. For years, the gold standard of browser privacy protection was a free open source extension called uBlock Origin. Created by developer Raymond Hill, uBlock Origin was downloaded over 39 million times. It was consistently recommended by security researchers, privacy advocates, and technology publications as the most effective ad and tracker blocker available on any browser platform. It worked by using Chrome's Web Request API to intercept and evaluate network requests in real time, blocking advertising and tracking scripts before they ever loaded. When a website tried to load 47 different third-party trackers, uBlock Origin stopped all 47 before any of them could run. Google announced a change to Chrome's extension framework called Manifest v3. The central technical change was replacing the Web Request API with something called the Declarative Net Request API. Google said this was for security and performance reasons. Security researchers and extension developers said something different. They said the new API fundamentally limited the ability of content blockers to do their job because the new system required blocking rules to be declared in advance rather than evaluated dynamically. Real-time interception of new tracking methods, a critical capability for sophisticated ad blocking, was severely restricted. In June 2024, the Chrome Web Store began showing warnings to uBlock Origin users that the extension would soon stop being supported. In late 2024, the full uBlock Origin extension was removed from the Chrome Web Store entirely. In July 2025, Google permanently disabled all remaining Manifest v2 extensions across Chrome. uBlock Origin, 39 million downloads, gone. Chrome 103.8's update that month showed users a message reading, "These extensions are no longer supported. Chrome recommends that you remove them." The uBlock Origin team was unambiguous about what this meant. They recommended users switch to Firefox, which fully supports Manifest v2 and the full uBlock Origin extension without restriction. As of 2026, if you want the complete, unrestricted version of uBlock Origin, you cannot have it on Chrome. You can use uBlock Origin Lite, a reduced functionality version rebuilt for Manifest v3 that cannot perform dynamic filtering with the same effectiveness as the original. For users of Firefox or Brave, the full extension is available and fully functional. The reason this matters is not complicated. Google's primary business is advertising. In 2024, Google generated approximately $265 billion in total revenue. The overwhelming majority of that came from advertising. Effective ad blockers reduce the reach and effectiveness of Google's advertising products. A browser extension framework that limits ad blockers serves Google's financial interests. The company framed Manifest v3 as a security improvement. Raymond Hill and privacy researchers worldwide called it what it was: an architectural change that weakened the most effective privacy tool Chrome users had. And while this was happening, something else was building in the background. Something that brings us directly to January 2026 and the feature that represents the most significant expansion of Chrome's data access in the browser's history. On January 14, 2026, Google launched Personal Intelligence. The announcement was positioned as a premium feature for Google AI Pro and AI Ultra subscribers, with plans to expand it over time. By March 17, 2026, it had been rolled out to all free Gemini users in the United States. Personal Intelligence connects Gemini directly to your Gmail inbox, your Google Photos library, your YouTube watch history, and your Google search history all at once through a single setting. The AI can then reason across all of those data sources simultaneously to answer your questions. Google says Personal Intelligence is opt-in and that you control which apps to connect. Both statements are accurate. You do not have to enable it. You can choose not to connect Gmail or YouTube. These controls are real and they work. But the direction of travel that Personal Intelligence represents is important to understand clearly. Chrome, in January 2026, became the interface through which Gemini can access and reason across the most personal data you have stored in Google's ecosystem. Your emails, your photos, your watch history, your search queries. The AI sitting inside Chrome can now be connected to all of it simultaneously. Google states that the content of Gmail inboxes and photos libraries is not used directly to train Gemini models. They say it is used only to generate answers for your queries. The policy line they draw is real. But the practical reality is that the AI inside your browser now has the capacity, when enabled, to reference 15 years of your email history, every photo you have taken that you stored on Google, every video you have watched on YouTube, and every search you have made, all in a single interaction. The intimacy of that data access is genuinely unprecedented for a browser. Now, let us return to May 2026, because this is where the current month's story becomes impossible to look away from. On May 4th, 2026, Alexander Hanf published his investigation into Chrome's silent installation of Gemini Nano. The 4 GB file, weights, bin sitting inside opt guide on device model. No consent prompt, no notification, no visible checkbox in Chrome's settings on the devices where it appeared. The model powers features including Help Me Write, on-device scam detection, and a summarizer API that websites can call directly through their code. These features are enabled by default in recent Chrome versions. The download triggers automatically on devices that meet hardware requirements. If you delete the file, Chrome downloads it again. Hanf was explicit about this in his report. He said that permanently preventing Chrome from restoring the file requires either navigating to Chrome Josh flags to disable the relevant AI flag, or applying enterprise policy controls that most ordinary users have never heard of and would not know to use. Hanf, a computer scientist and lawyer, filed a formal accusation stating that this behavior violates the European Union's GDPR. His argument is precise. He says that because Chrome's browser functions operate normally without the Gemini Nano model present, Google cannot claim a necessity exemption to justify skipping consent. The download serves Google's AI feature rollout, not any critical browser function the user asked for. Therefore, under GDPR's requirements for transparent and lawful data handling, the silent installation without consent is a violation. He also calculated the environmental cost. At Chrome's global scale, with hundreds of millions or potentially billions of devices receiving the 4 GB download, he estimated the climate impact at between 6,000 and 60,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. In many parts of the world, including large portions of South Asia, Africa, and Southeast Asia, a 4 GB download represents a significant portion of a user's monthly mobile data allowance. Chrome consumed that data budget for AI features those users did not know existed, did not ask for, and received no notification about. Google responded with a statement saying the model handles security tasks, including scam detection entirely on the device, and that Chrome would remove it automatically on hardware with insufficient storage. On May 9th, 2026, the Register reported that Google had also quietly changed the wording in Chrome's privacy documentation, removing a long-standing assurance about local AI processing. Google said the change was clarification, not a policy shift. Privacy researchers noted that regardless of the reason for the wording change, the direction of editing was toward less specificity about what the AI does with your data, not more. Now step back from the individual incidents and look at what this timeline represents in total. 2019, Google promises to eliminate third-party tracking cookies from Chrome. 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, promise extended 5 times. April 2025, third-party cookie phase-out formally abandoned. October 2025, Privacy Sandbox killed entirely after 6 years of development. Late 2024, full uBlock origin removed from Chrome Web Store. July 2025, Chrome permanently disables all Manifest v2 ad blocking extensions. January 2026, personal intelligence launches, connecting Gemini to Gmail, Photos, YouTube, and search history through Chrome. February 2026, Google shuts down its dark web report feature, which had been monitoring whether your personal data appeared in breaches less than 2 years after launching it. May 2026, discovery that Chrome has been silently downloading a 4 GB Gemini Nano AI model to hundreds of millions of devices, reinstalling it when users delete it with no consent prompt. Read that timeline again. Every item on it moves in the same direction. Less protection from third-party tracking, less effective ad blocking, more AI access to personal data across Google's ecosystem, more software installed on your device without your knowledge, and every time a privacy protection was removed or weakened, Google had a technically defensible explanation. Now, the cookies are still user-controllable in settings, the extension framework is more secure, personal intelligence is opt-in, the AI model is on-device and protects your security. Each individual statement contains elements of truth. The cumulative direction they describe is unmistakable. This brings us to where you sit right now in June 2026, using Chrome on a device that may already have a 4 GB AI model silently installed on it. Let us deal with the most urgent thing first. If you are on Windows, open File Explorer. Navigate to this path, your local app data folder, then Google, then Chrome, then user data, then OpGuide on device model. You can reach it by pressing Windows key and R, typing %local app data %. Google or Chrome your user data's by OpGuide on device model, and pressing Enter. If the folder exists and contains a file called weights. Bin, Chrome has installed Gemini Nano on your machine. On macOS, the path is users, then your username, then library, then application support, then Google, then Chrome, then default, then opt-guide on device model. On Ubuntu, it is typically in your home directory under config Google Chrome default opt-guide on device model. To stop Chrome from reinstalling the model after you delete it, open Chrome and type Chrome flags in the address bar. Search for the flag called Enables Optimization Guide on device. Set it to disabled. Restart Chrome. Then you can delete the opt-guide on device model folder and Chrome will not automatically recreate it. Google also added a settings path in February 2026. Go to Chrome Settings, then AI, and look for the toggle to manage on-device AI models. If this option is present in your version of Chrome, disabling it there is the cleaner solution. After disabling the flag or the settings toggle, delete the opt-guide on device model folder and empty your trash. Now let us talk about what you should actually do about Chrome itself, because disabling one AI flag is not the same as addressing the full picture of what Chrome is doing in 2026. The three browsers worth switching to have not changed since we last covered this topic, but the reasons for switching have gotten significantly stronger. Firefox is built by Mozilla, a nonprofit organization. It fully supports the complete version of uBlock Origin with Manifest v2. It blocks third-party cookies by default in standard browsing. It has enhanced tracking protection turned on out of the box. Its source code is open and can be audited by anyone. Mozilla's business model is not built on advertising data, which means Mozilla does not benefit financially from knowing more about your browsing behavior. Firefox also introduced total cookie protection, which isolates cookies in separate containers for each website, preventing cross-site tracking even when cookies are technically present. Brave is built on Chromium, the same engine that Chrome uses, which means web compatibility is essentially identical to Chrome. But Brave removes all of Google's data collection infrastructure from the Chromium codebase and replaces it with privacy-first architecture. Brave blocks third-party trackers by default without any extension needed. It blocks fingerprinting by default. It blocks third-party cookies by default. It still fully supports uBlock Origin. Its Shields feature shows you in real time exactly how many trackers were blocked on every page you visit. Many users switching from Chrome find Brave the most immediately familiar experience because the interface is so close to what they already know. Safari, for users in the Apple ecosystem, has intelligent tracking prevention powered by machine learning, built-in fingerprint protection that randomizes certain browser characteristics to make you harder to identify across sites, and a private relay feature available to iCloud subscribers that routes your traffic through two separate internet relays so that no single company can see both who you are and what you're browsing simultaneously. Safari also does not participate in Google's advertising ecosystem in any way and does not serve Google's financial interests through its default configuration. Switching from Chrome takes about 20 minutes. Open Firefox, Brave, or Safari. Find the import function in the browser settings. It is called import data in most browsers. Select Chrome as the source. Your bookmarks, browsing history, and saved passwords move over automatically. Set the new browser as your default in your operating system settings, not just in the browser itself. Go to your operating system's default app setting and change the default browser there. Then uninstall Chrome properly. On Windows, go to Settings, then Apps, find Google Chrome and uninstall it. On Mac, drag Chrome from Applications to Trash and empty the trash. On iPhone or Android, press and hold the Chrome icon and select the uninstall or delete option. If you continue using Google Search after switching browsers, change your default search engine to DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo does not log your searches, does not build a profile on you, and does not use your search history for advertising targeting. In Brave, the default is already Brave Search, an independent search index that has no tracking whatsoever. Both of these alternatives return adequate results for the vast majority of everyday searches. For the rare query, where you specifically need Google's depth of indexing, DuckDuckGo allows you to prefix any search with the letter G, followed by an exclamation point to route that specific query through Google without switching tools. Go right now, while this video is still playing, and check whether the Gemini Nano file is on your computer. The path is there in the last few minutes of this script. Go look, because the moment that 3 billion people open that folder and see that Chrome put a 4 GB file there without asking, the conversation about whether to keep using Chrome stops being theoretical. Google is not an evil company in the cartoon villain sense of that phrase. The engineering inside Chrome is serious work by serious people. Gemini is a genuinely capable AI. The security features Chrome offers are real. These things can all be true. What can also be true, and what the timeline from 2019 to June 2026 demonstrates with complete clarity, is that every privacy promise Google has made about Chrome has either been quietly weakened, formally abandoned, or replaced by a feature that serves Google's advertising and AI interests more than it serves yours. The Privacy Sandbox was Google's last major public promise that Chrome would become less invasive. It is dead. uBlock Origin, the most effective tool Chrome users had to protect themselves from tracking, is gone from Chrome. Personal intelligence has arrived to connect the browser to your entire Google data history. And Chrome is now downloading AI software to your computer at 4 GB a time, silently, reinstalling it when you try to remove it, telling you nothing about it in a consent prompt that does not exist. That is not a series of coincidences. That is a direction. And the direction runs directly away from privacy and directly toward the comprehensive behavioral understanding of 3 billion people that Google's $265 billion advertising business requires. You paid for the device in your hands. You pay for the internet connection that Chrome runs over. Every hour you spend online is your time. You deserve a browser that uses those hours to serve your interests. Firefox, Brave, and Safari are not compromises. They are better browsers in the ways that matter most in 2026. The switch takes 20 minutes. The 4 GB file that Chrome put on your computer without asking took longer to download than that. Make the switch today, not because of any single item on that timeline, because of what all of them together mean. The last privacy promise is gone. What happens next is your choice.